Dena Tollefson, and welcome to my studio. So glad to have you here today. It's going to be beginner oil painting supplies. So if you are a painter right now and maybe you're doing watercolor or maybe you're doing acrylics, gouache, something like that, or graphite colored pencil, and you've always wanted to try oil painting, today is your day. So I hope that you'll join me. I'm going to move this light a little bit. I've got a glare right there. There we go. So I hope that you'll join in on the chat, and if you'd like to be quiet, that's fine too. And I'd love to chat with you if you're available, so that's great. All right, so let me go and I'm gonna do a refresh here. So today's topic, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be showing you all the things that you need. We're gonna make a list of all the things that are needed, and then I'm also gonna be showing you some paint mixing things that you can do. And I'll also be showing you today how to do the how to put hardware on the back of your paintings. So that's a important thing to know how to do. So let's get started here. And what I want to show you first is just a couple little oil paintings that I've done. And hey Miranda, great to see you. Excellent to see you, Miranda. How are you doing? And thank you everyone also for who has subscribed, and I really appreciate all the support that you give to me and my channel. It's wonderful. This is a little daisy painting that I did. This is oil, and it's just on a 5x7 canvas. And this is another little painting that I did, but you'll see it's done on a super thin little canvas board. These canvas boards are great, but they have to be, the thing about them is they do have to be framed. What's kind of nice about these paintings that are already on a stretched canvas is you can just hang them up as they are, and they don't really require anything else. And yeah, and you're doing well, and that's good. I'm glad to hear that, Miranda. And weather's pretty good here. I don't know what the weather's like over by you, but pretty good here today. So all right, so what we want to do now is let's talk about the things that we'll need. So the first thing that you're going to need is paint. And that's pretty obvious. So you have your choices. You can either get traditional, or you can get the water mincible, or water mixable paint. So I have both of them. I'll show you here today. Get this moved over here. This is the Arteza brand of paint. And Miranda, you said hyacinths and tulips are popping up. Oh my gosh. Wow, that's nice in Virginia. Oh my gosh, I have spring fever so badly, Miranda, I tell you. It's still we still have piles of snow here in Iowa. Virginia, you guys, I know you guys are ahead. So ahead of us. These are Arteza brand, and I am an affiliate of Arteza. So they sent me these as a gift, which is really nice. Always great to get a gift. But these oil colors these are traditional, so that means that you need to, they're not soap and water cleanup. You can use, some people will use oil to clean them, some people, their brushes. I just use soap and water to clean my brushes and my palette knives after using that. But what I prefer to use is the water mixable or the water mincible. And this is this brand is Winsor Newton. And then I've got a couple other brands here. This is Van Gogh H2O. So most companies will make both a traditional and a water mixable. The water mixable type are just as archival, and they're easier to use. You don't need any fumes there are no chemicals that you have to use, like turpentine, that type of thing, to use with your paint. And so it's really convenient. It's super nice that you can just use soap and water cleanup. You don't want to add too much water to the paint, though. If you're going to be using these, then what you do is you need these. And hey, Andy, glad to see you. So if you're using the water mixable paints like these, then what you would use, and also here too, there's Cobra brand. Let me show you this quickly too. So this is the Cobra brand. This is Royal Talons, and I like this paint a lot. This one has got a lot more It seems like it's more oily than the other paints, but sometimes you like that if there's a little bit more oil in the paint. So these things that you can add into your paint would be linseed oil, and I've got two brands here, Aqua and Artisan. And then also you can use painting medium. So if you're used to doing glazing, that type of thing, traditional glazing, you can do it the same way with these water mixable versions. And so these mediums, but it is important to get the medium that goes, see this says water soluble oil. It's important to get that particular type. So you'll need your paint. And then the next thing that you're going to need would be, if you are going to do the traditional painting, then a lot of times people like to use mineral spirits or turpentine. They're all different kinds of brands out there. I don't use them personally, so I can't make recommendations for that, but I know that they are out there. I do recommend people use the water mixable or water miscible paints. And let me show you a little bit. I'm going to grab my palette. So I've got a couple of colors laid out here. And also thank you for everybody who's watching, and thank you for your likes. So I'm going to show you with the color wheel what you can do. So here are some colors, and I'm just going to put other, you might have heard people talk about what they say like a limited palette or a traditional palette. What you can do is you don't have to get a lot of different colors. You actually can just, really mix your own, which is a super convenient thing. I've just got black, I've got a Mars black, titanium white, primary yellow. This is the Cobra. Actually, that's this particular Cobra right here. And this guy, is this primary yellow? Oh, sorry, permanent yellow. Permanent yellow. And then, and hey, Kenny's Art, good to see you. This is a cadmium red hue. So this is not actually cadmium red, it's cadmium red hue, which means that there are no bad chemicals in it. Some of the cadmiums have got some scary chemicals. So I use the cadmium hue, which is the safe one to use. And then this is French ultramarine blue. So I'll just show you, if you were to look at the color wheel, here I've got my color wheel right here. These color wheels are absolutely wonderful to use because what they'll do is they'll tell you without you don't have to guess. So if we just take the color yellow, and Andy, and you have cyan, magenta, yellow, black, you can get exactly, Andy, that's exactly it. That's that point I wanted to show is you can get really almost any color that you want to mix. So if you had yellow, for example, and you were to add red, so yellow plus red, you're going to get orange. If you had yellow plus blue, you're going to get green. Yellow plus black, you're going to get kind of a yellowy green. And if you then take, for example, you can also see on here, if you took yellow and blue, you're going to get green. So if you just go across, and then you'll see what you had. If you had a little bit more yellow, you'd have yellow green, a little bit more blue, you'd have blue green. If we look, for example, over here at red, so what you can do is you can say, okay, if I have red, I add yellow, I get orange, it works from there. And what's nice about this is, or what I guess actually what people don't talk about, is that, what happens if you take red and you add green to it? What would you get? Or if you had yellow and you added purple, well, what happens is if you add things that are like across the way from each other or similar to across the way, you actually get these kind of complex browns and grays and really wonderful neutrals. And white lightens it up. Exactly, Andy. That's exactly it. So if you had white, and if you add gray, then and they'll even tell you on here too, that you can get what's called a shade or a tint. So let me see, where does it say shade and tint on here? I know I've seen it before on here. Let's see. Well, where are you, shade and tint? Let's see here. No, I'm not seeing it. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Okay. So a tint is a color plus white. A tone is a color plus gray. A shade is a color plus black. And then a neutral gray would be, you know, the white plus black. But you can also make these wonderful grays by just, and I'll just mix up a little color just to kind of show you. You can make a, with the red and yellow, we can make orange. And if I now take some of the blue and orange and white, I can make a wonderful kind of a neutral gray. So these, so colors, getting the colors from the different colors that you get right out of the tube, we're just going to kind of just demonstrate how you can really mix all your own colors. So let me say let me get I'm going to wipe this off with a paper towel. So you used to be in the printing trade mixing inks. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And hey Carrie, great to see you. The Bridges, Carrie. So so now if I were to take yellow, yeah, and isn't that something, Andy, how you were right with the cyan. So yeah, you can really mix any color that you want with that. So if I were to take the blue and the yellow, for example, and we get this kind of blue-green. But look at these wonderful kind of nuanced colors that we can make with just, you know, if you're starting out in oil painting and you're wondering, you know, how do I make all these little interesting colors? And the trick is to use what this is called a palette knife. The trick is to use a palette knife when you're mixing, because that way you don't get your brushes all gummed up when you're working. And it's the same principle, that's right, absolutely. So let's say now I were to take a little bit of, let me make a purple. I'll show you how to make a purple. If you just take, whoops, we got a little yellow in that. Let me get that wiped out. So if we take our French ultramarine, a little bit of our Cad red hue, and we're gonna make a dark, dark, dark purple. And I'll add a little bit more of the blue. And look at that dark inky color that you get. And if we were to just go in and add now some white, then we can make a really nice light purple. And then if we were to add even some more red to that, we could make a kind of a reddish purple. So really all these wonderful colors you can just kind of make all on your own. Isn't that a pretty color? And say, hey, Art Life. It's good to see you. All the way from England. Whoops, let me grab another paper towel. So Art Life, what we're doing is just showing everybody that when you're learning, when you're doing beginning oil colors, you really, like these are the original colors I start with, and you can make all the colors of your painting with just really just a yellow, a red, a blue, a black, and a white. And then let me just show you too, if we were to take the orange and we were to put the purple with the orange. So the orange and the purple are across from each other on the wheel. So orange and then violet or purple. So they're across, but they're not completely all the way across. Blue and orange are completely across. So I know that if I did orange and blue, I'm going to get kind of a gray color. But if I did, say, orange and purple, so we mixed up this purple, and if we were to put orange, this is the color that I'll mix up if I'm making brown, if I need a brown color. So we just make this color, and that makes just a wonderful chocolatey brown. And then here's if you ever wanted to make like a soft antique mauve, you take orange and purple together. And I'll show you if I add some white, what kind of a neat color we can make, kind of a little antique-y gray mauve kind of a color. And I'll hold that up close so you can see we can even add a little bit. So you can just mix these colors all together and make these kind of really interesting complex colors. So that's kind of also a tip too when you're working and beginning as a oil painter. It's nice to be able to Well, Art Life, you are really, no, see, you are really good and you don't realize how good you are. So just keep, just keep working at it and keep, honing what you're doing. It's, you actually much better than you think that you are. So, okay, so we have paint. So we've talked about paint. That is what you need. Now the next thing that you need, and we talked a little bit about some of these mediums, the linseed oil, the medium, and the linseed oil. So linseed oil is used to make the paint more juicy or more flowable. It will, you can put some of this in when you're ready to sign your name, and you can make it like down to an inky consistency. And then medium is what you can put in if you had, let's say, a painting and then it was completely dry and then you wanted to do glazing. So you mix some of the medium in with your paint and then you apply it over the top of the painting and let that dry. It's a process where you dry and yes, and you should. I want to see you painting, Art Life, absolutely. Well, thank you, Andy, and thank you all you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys. So the next thing that we talk, so we have some medium, which is your linseed oil. Walnut oil is also another one. And then there is just medium for glazing. Okay, so the next thing to talk about is canvas. So when you paint, you need to put your paint on something. So it needs to take what they call a support. So what that is, and I'll just set the paint over here. So what that consists of is for canvas, you can either get cotton canvas or you can get linen canvas. And linen is the one that's very expensive, but it's strong. Cotton is the most common. So I'll show you, I have a linen canvas here. I had and you'll see on the back of the canvas that it is kind of a gray color, and linen is a super fine weave. So I had a painting commission that I did a couple years ago, and there were six paintings I had of shells, and so I got a oil primed linen because I was looking for a super smooth kind of and hey Chrissy, good to see you. So I had a client who was looking for paintings done in a super smooth kind of and hey Eve, good to see you. Thank you for joining everyone, and I appreciate you guys being here. So this linen, what the advantage of linen is if you are doing portraits, if you're doing something with a lot of detail, what the oil primed linen will do is it will give a super smooth kind of a surface. And so the linen, there's a wonderful place for linen, and linen also has these little, what they call slubs, these little irregularities, and that makes kind of a pleasing texture. Now, oil primed, if you have oil primed, you can only paint oil on top of oil primed. If you have, you can also do, and I'll hold up another canvas here. So this is a cotton canvas, and you can see the difference is there's a weave in here that is more of a regular weave. There are no slubs in it, but this one is this is acrylic primed. So if you look over here, you can tell when you look at your canvas what it is. So this one says it's ready for all oil and acrylic paints. So you could paint this in acrylic, you could paint this in oil, but it's acrylic primed. So you can have acrylic under oil. You cannot do oil on top of it, or you can't do acrylic on top of oil, but you can do oil on top of acrylic. So it's, I'm gonna show you one other one. This is an Arteza canvas. So your canvases are either going to be, they're either going to be stapled on the back, they're going to be stapled on the side, or they're going to be what they call splined. So, and hey Crafty Leaks, Good to see you. Thank you for joining also. So your canvas you can get on a roll or you can get it pre-stretched. Or you can get a panel. So that it sounds confusing, but it's actually it's pretty straightforward. This is what canvas looks like when it comes right off the roll. So this is acrylic primed, which means that there's gesso on top of here. And this is the fabric. So here's the back side and here's the front side. So this gesso that's put on here. And hey, Ian, good to see you. Thank you for joining us, Ian. So when you put this, you can take canvas, for example, you actually can prime your own. You can buy what's called cotton duck, and then you can, and if you look and see the painting Stoof, she just did a wonderful tutorial on how to prime, stretch and prime your own canvas. So check her out if you get a chance to. And hey, Piece of Art by Rays, good to see you. So what you do is you can get the canvas. If you wanted it to be oil primed, you can put an oil gesso on. But again, remember, the minute you put oil on top of here, you cannot put acrylic on top of that. So you want to be able to just keep it so that it's going to be archival. If you were to put acrylic on top of oil, it is not going to dry properly because the way the acrylic dries versus the way the oil dries, it doesn't allow all of the moisture and everything to come out, and you can get a thing where the paint actually would come off of your canvas, which would be a nightmare. So you don't want to do that. But anyway, you can get this canvas. Actually, I have a roll of this stuff. It's like, I don't know, I think 4 foot tall, something like that. I don't know how many yards of it I have, but I use this for scraps. Sometimes I'll just do this for little studies. I'll just cut little pieces off. I have in the past stretched my own canvases with just the cotton, but I prefer to just buy them. I think they do a nice job with it, and it's easy to use. And so, oh, thank you for saying that, Crafty. And it'll blister, Chrissy, exactly. That's exactly what will happen. So what they'll do at the manufacturer is they will take the canvas like they did here, and you can tell that they took this canvas just like that, and then they wrap it around, and then they staple it. And you can see that because you can't see that there's plain fabric and then there's gesso. They use something like this. And the weight of your canvas is important. So on my technique that I'm doing, I use a very heavy impasto, which means a very thick, heavy texture. It bounces. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I am using a 10-ounce natural cotton duck and a heavy-duty frame. So because of my impasto technique, I need something that's going to really stand up to this texture. So now this is a splined. So we have stapled either on the side or on the back, or something that is an upgrade from that is called splined. So what a spline is it's this little ridge that sits in here, and they put a little something in there and stuff it down, and then they'll secure it with additional staples. So here's a little bit bigger canvas. You can see the spline runs like so. But yeah, you want to definitely get the right kind of canvas. The thinner canvas is less expensive typically, but if you're going to be doing, again, heavy texture, you want to be sure to get something that's going to hold up to that. So the other type of canvas that you have, or that you can get, is called a canvas panel. So you see this is 3 of these on here, and what that consists of is you can get them either archival or you can get what is called student grade. So this is basically canvas that's wrapped on top of a substrate. Sometimes it's cardboard, you can get them over wood, you can get them over plastic. They have a different, just be sure to look and see what you want as far as archival quality. But it'll say if it's archival on there or not. So these little panels are really kind of nice for doing, this is a set of, how many are in here? How many are in here? Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay, so these things are really rather inexpensive. They're really nice to use. A negative about a panel is the panels can warp a little bit. And then the panels are super easy to move around, that type of thing. This painting that I did, this was an oil on canvas, and so, or canvas panel. So this is going to need a frame around it. But what's nice about these other style is that you can just, this is a little guy that I did here, Daisy 39, and this is a 5x7. Then these just go right up on the wall. You paint the edges. And so, hey, Pencil. Yeah, panels are great. I agree, Chrissy. And Pencil, good to see you. So let me show you. Oh, and then I've also got, there's a couple other little, like you can get these little stretched canvases. This one is glued on the back. So this is a little one from Arteza, and it sits with an easel. But basically you can get, so just to recap, you can either stretch your own canvas, and you can buy the canvas and stretch it around, and I recommend that you check out the Painting Stoof, S-T-O-O-F. She did a great tutorial just recently on that. You can use these panels. You see that they have all of these panels. They'll say that it's ready to paint. So it'll receive paint. This is an acrylic primed. You can paint acrylic on it, or you can paint oil on it. And here it says right here, acrylic prime for use with all mediums. And then, and what's nice is these are easy to store and that type of thing. Then these other things you have to, when you store it, you have to be really careful that you don't puncture the back or do anything like that. So the advantage with the canvas panel is that it's super easy to use, and you're either going to be using it typically in either cotton or linen. And so then the next thing to talk about, and hugs to you, Chrissy. Okay, so the next thing that we need to talk about is brushes. So for brushes, you have a lot of choices for brushes. So I'm gonna grab some of my brushes here. These are, this is a Grumbucker thing. These are made of hog hair. And when you paint with a hog hair or a bristle brush like this, it will, you can really drag the paint along. These are nice and strong, and they will make wonderful ridges in your paint. So I've got quite a few of these different brushes, all different sizes. This is a Da Vinci. This is a Winsor & Newton. This one's Delta. All different brushes. And these brushes, a lot of these I've had for, if you take care of them, I've had them for decades. And I do a lot of painting, so these brushes are really convenient and nice, these bristle brushes. Then the other type of brush that you can use would be something like, these are Taklon, or Taklon, these soft brushes. I use these for both acrylic, and I use them also for oil. When you're signing your name, then it's also nice to get these little liner brushes. And that's what you can use. It has a long edge, and it's really nice to sign your name with it. And hey, Madonna, good to see you. And I appreciate all your likes too. You guys are so wonderful. You are so nice. So how you take care of your brushes is, what's nice is when you're using the water mixable paint, then you just are using, let me get my brush over here. When all you do is you just stick this in water, and then you use soap and water, like a regular dish soap is something that can be used. You can also get soap that is made by the paint manufacturer for removing paint. But if you just don't keep them in the water, don't keep them soaking in the water, but you would just go in with it and then get it rinsed in lots of fresh water, and then they just air dry. I just set it out on the counter to air dry, and then each night. I do not let my brushes soak overnight. At the end of the day, when I'm done for the day, I'll actually go and clean all the brushes out and then take care of them that way. Okay, so that's brushes, and a lot of different brush manufacturers that are out there. And I'm just gonna grab my little trove of brushes here. It's in a big container, but I've got this, I'll just kind of run, it's kind of like Star Wars, running over with a battleship. This is my trove of brushes, and the biggest one that I use here is literally a house painting brush. This is a Purdy 3-inch glide brush, but sometimes I have a very, very large canvas, and I'll actually be painting with this guy. I have this, and then I have his friend here, Mr. 2.5-inch. But this is for doing like really, really large works. But typically my work, I'm doing something, if it's something that's under 4 foot, then I'll tend to be using those, and then, you know, these kind of smaller brushes. These brushes you can get all the way down to these. Here's my set of smaller ones. You can get these things all the way down to just, you know, tiny, tiny, tiny little things for little details. There's this old adage that says that you begin with a broom and you finish with a wisp. So you start your work out using the biggest brush that you can, and then you finish and put those details in using the smaller brushes. Okay, so the next thing that we need for beginner oil painting supplies would be, so we talked about paint, and we talked about the mediums that you might use, and then the canvas. So you have the paint, and then you have a canvas, and then you have to put it on with something, so you can do brushes. The other thing that you can use, and this is what I use a lot in my art practice, are these palette knives. So a palette knife is handy for, you can apply the paint with it, like I did here on this little guy, the little pear painting. I'm gonna grab another one. So this is another lily painting that I did, and if I move it and show you a little bit the texture, you can see. So I painted first an underpainting, and then I came back in and did a, using a palette knife, I put the palette knife on with all of this texture. This was all put on. This is a technique I developed called Daubism to do this 3D, very touchable texture. But this is, so what we do here then is the New Wave palette. And what you can do here then is you can go in and you can put your paint on here. What's super nice is at the end of the day you can just scrape it all together and then take the palette and peel that sheet off, and then you have, like, I think this one has got, say, 50 sheets or something like that. These things are super convenient for painting. They have a surface on them that it won't soak in. So if I peel this paper back a little bit and I look behind it, the paper behind it is not soaking through. So these are really super convenient. I have also all of the supplies that you see. If you need any supplies, you can go. I'm what's called an Amazon influencer, which means that I'll pick products that I like and they're in a store or in a shop. If you shop from there, then I do receive compensation from Amazon, but it's no additional cost to you. And if you type in amazon.com/shop/Dena_Tollefson, and you have to type it in all the way this way, and you follow me. Oh, thank you, Miranda. Yeah, so if you type this in all the way, if you just go into Amazon and search for my name, you won't find it. You have to type in directly. Then you can see all of my recommendations. I've got pencils, colored pencils, erasers, watercolors, watercolor supplies, frames, easels, you know, you name it. I've got all of that stuff out there. Grayscale, color wheel, all of these things that you can find out there. So it's just one kind of nice place to find all the recommendations. So the next thing to talk about would be an easel. So this is a little metal easel, and they just open up just like so, and I'll just see if I can get it to open there. And then your art sits right here on the tray, like so. I'll just put a little guy on here. So it basically sits like this, and then it sits right on your table. But these little easels are super convenient if you don't paint that often, or if you're, say you are limited on space. This just you know, telescopes out, and then it folds away into a really super easy thing. These things are super inexpensive. They're very sturdy. this brand is Stand Right, and other brands are out there that are also wonderful, but I've used these little metal easels just for little small things. And oh, can I recommend more paintbrush variety packs? I will. I'll take a note to do that, Miranda. I'll add some more on there. I'll take a look and look at some good ones, some good options. But yeah, the brushes in packs, that's what some of these guys are here. These are the American Painter, and Low Cornell also has some great ones, but American Painter, actually it's these Low Cornell. These are in a pack. So you can get like the flats and you can get the rounds. And we should actually probably talk a little bit about that too, is that round brushes, you can really paint everything that you need to paint with either rounds and flats. There are all these different other shapes which are available that you can get, and they get fancy, but when it comes down to it, you can get everything that you need really. And here's a filbert. This is like a flat brush with a rounded edge, but really everything that you need to do, you can do with just rounds and flats, and anything beyond that is just kind of icing on the cake. So I recommend a good set of different sizes of rounds and flats. All right, so the next thing to talk about, let me move this over here, would be, let's see, so we've talked about paint, medium, which is either going to be your linseed oil or walnut oil, or glazing medium. These are optional. You don't have to use that, but I strongly recommend you at least get some type of a linseed oil or a walnut oil to mix in with your paint when you're signing your painting. Other than that, you don't actually have to use a medium. So you've got either traditional or water mixable, and I recommend the water mixable paint. And the canvas, unless you're going to be doing something super fancy or super detailed, I would recommend going with cotton. You can get a portrait grade in cotton. They come in different grades. Get the thickness and the type of edge that you want. If you want to do this or you want to frame them, then you get that. You can get it in either a roll, pre-stretched, or panels. And then you've got brushes and palette knives. So the last thing I wanted to show you, and yes, Miranda, okay, I will absolutely add those in. So be looking for that later today. I'll be adding that to the Amazon store. So the last thing I wanted to show you is how you go in and you would put hardware on something like this so that you can hang it up. So what I do is I get these, what you need is I've got these, you can go and buy these you can get individual things. These are called D-rings. So let me write that on here, D-ring. So what you want to do is get yourself D-rings. Now I've got these giantly Mongo, huge ones. And yeah, these little canvases are nice. Aren't they nice, these tiny little ones? So these D-rings, so I've got two different sizes. So these little ones I use on these tiny canvases. And then for large paintings, anything that is a 24, let's say, well, 36 by 36 or bigger, then I use these really large D-rings. And how this is held in place is the D-ring, you place it in here, and then you take a pencil and you mark with a pencil. You take a ruler, actually take a ruler first. Where's my ruler? You would take a ruler and you want to measure down. If you're going to frame, for example, this guy, then you take this and you'd measure about a third of the way down, and then you put a mark, and you put a mark there, and so you would hang and you would put a little D-ring on here just like so. And you can take a nail and your hammer, and you can hammer in and make a little, and then what you do is take a screw. So these things come with screws. And I actually have my oldest child and my husband do this for me because it takes a lot of hand strength. Then you put the screw in. So once you have these D-rings there, and so Madonna, you're asking, do you have the primer or the canvas for oils, gesso or something like that? Yeah, okay, so And a third way down, Miranda, yes. So Madonna, the canvas on oil, these canvases, if you buy them or you buy the canvas like this is just a canvas on a roll, it already comes pre-primed with, this is an acrylic gesso. If you wanted to go in and like paint, this is a linen one that I have, and this happens to be oil primed gesso. And the oil primed gesso, there's a little small advantage to doing that with oil if you're going to be doing glazing, which I was doing on here. And it flows really smoothly. But the acrylic gesso will work if you're painting acrylic paints or if you're doing oil paint. So I have used gesso where I've gotten gesso out of a big container and put it onto the fabric itself, and it's a little bit messy. It's a lot of work, and again, I recommend that you go out to the Painting Stoof, S-T-O-O-F, her channel. She just did a great thing on stretching a canvas, and I'll put a link for that. But it's a super good tutorial that Steph did. And so these little D-rings, or big D-rings in this case, you put this on, and then you take your wire, and you can get these little framing kits. You can get it where it comes with the screws and the D-rings and some wire. You can get these at the hardware store, or you can do, and you can see I've got a lot of paintings that I'm framing here, but what I do is I take this wire, and then you take the wire and you cut it to the length that you need, and then you'll string it through the D-ring. So I'll show you on one that's already done what that looks like. Okay, this one does not have it. Let me get a bigger. See, I know I've got a bigger one here. Oh yeah, okay. So on the back of this lily painting, I have, so I painted the edges. And then what we have back here is we have the D-rings. So you see these two small little D-rings are on here, and then there's a screw that holds them in. So I've measured down. You want to make sure that when you're measuring, measure down the same distance here on both of them. And then you take your wire and you run your wire through, loop it around, loop it once inside the D-ring, come back around, and then this is the end of the wire on both sides, and then you can finish it like that. You can also put on a nice little piece of tape so that people don't poke their fingers, so then they can hang it on the wall just like that. There are some people who only want to hang from the D-rings, but what's nice is if you put a wire, then it gives them more options as far as hanging it. So this method works if you have this is called a gallery wrap canvas, which means that you can paint all the edges and it looks presentable on all edges. And you can also use that same method if you have it framed. So this is just a little bumblebee painting, this little fella that I did. And he's a little 4x6 oil on panel. So here's an example then if you had a painting that you did on a panel, like this kind of a thing, where you have just a panel, then it needs to go inside the frame. So you have your frame, and then you set your painting inside, and then you do the D-rings that same way. So here are the D-rings, and they sit up like that, and then you run your wire across, and in this case I put a little bit of this tape just to keep it so nobody bumps into bumblebee Clarence. And hey Robert, good to see you. Thank you for joining, Robert. So, and Robert, just as now sadly here, just as you're joining, I'm just about to finish. So, oh my goodness, Robert. Oh, I'm sorry that I missed you here. So what I want to say then is, if you guys have any questions, I hope this has been helpful, and I hope that I want to encourage you to try oil painting. It is a wonderful, wonderful medium. The oil is very unctuous. Oil paint's very unctuous and very smooth and wonderful to work with, and I hope that you do try oil painting. And oh, and one last thing too is varnish. There's a whole controversy on varnish. Varnish yes or varnish no. These are some varnishes that I have. This is called a Retouch Varnish, and this is a finish varnish. Retouch, they only say that they want this to be finished with a final version after, say, 6 months. But Retouch Varnish is what you would do if you're painting in oil and then you wanted the certain areas were looking patchy and dry, and you wanted to go back, say, 4 to 6 months or so after, even a month after you had painted, and you can spray this on. I had done these sprays for the this oil on linen that I had done for a commission, but I typically do not varnish any of my work. And so, okay, so you've done oil painting in portraits. Yeah, absolutely. You're right, Robert. And Robert is very talented, if you haven't already checked out his channel. So, all right, you guys, well, I want to thank you. And if you have any follow-on questions or anything else that you'd like to see, just go ahead and write me a comment. And I appreciate you guys watching. And until next time, this is Dena Tollefson, and bye-bye.